Welcome to the Good Sounds podcast, where we explore the history, science, and healing power of sound. I'm Lauren, and today I'm joined by Jonathan Goldman, a pioneer in the sound healing world with over 45 years of experience. He's the author of The 7 Secrets of Sound Healing, The Humming Effect, which he co-authored with Andy Goldman, and much, much more. Jonathan, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Lauren, great to be talking to you. Thank you for inviting me. How wonderful is it that we can bilocate using the energy of the internet, communicate with each other from different parts of the world.
Yes, it truly is amazing. And where are you right now?
I am in Boulder, Colorado.
Beautiful.
Which is a pretty interesting high consciousness place. I've been here for about 30 plus years. Before that, Boston, before that, New York, and at least at this time in planetary uploading.
Amazing. Did I miss anything in your intro?
Well, my main website is healingsounds.com, and if people just want to go there and have an extraordinary, that website's been up for over 30 years. It's probably one of the major focal points of sound healing, with information about how to use sound for healing, all sorts of free downloads, et cetera, et cetera. And I think it's a really good one. And I mean, by gosh, by golly, you have to think that we've been around for a while if we actually had the term healing sounds. All right, I'm done.
The OG.
Done with the pitch. Okay.
Amazing. Love that. And yeah, I'm a member of that as well. And I can vouch for the wonderful satsangs you have on there too.
Oh, yeah.
So I would love to start with, if you could take me back to the moment where you first realized that sound might be able to become medicine. What was that moment like?
Okay, Lauren, here we go. We're going back in the Wayback Machine. The summer of probably 1978, 1979. I'm down in Cape Cod, Massachusetts, playing in a seaside bar, strapping on my Stratocaster, coming in from a break after being with my fellow band members and having a whatever it was we were doing, and stepping on stage, looking out at the audience, beginning to play, and suddenly realizing that the atmosphere in the club was one of negativity and violence, and understanding that the alcohol and the different things that people are imbibing in were helping create this negativity, but at the same time understanding that the music that I was creating at the time was also helping induce this ambiance of negativity and violence, and having the thought, what if music can be used to make people feel better? I had been, I'd gone to college, played, music in college. In high school, I had a high school band that was pretty well known, et cetera, but it was always, hey, look at me, aren't I great, aren't I cool, et cetera. Never, wow, what's the music doing besides, basically giving me an egotistic up? So I had the thought, what if, sound, music can be used to basically make people feel better, and that thought just shifted to, what if sound can be used to heal? And from there, doors just began to open. In about a week, I was handed a piece of paper which advertised a flyer of a workshop being given by a woman by the name of Sarah Benson. And I went to this workshop, and I was put in the middle of a circle. There were about 40 people there. I was holding one of these, a quartz crystal, and I was holding it with my eyes closed, sitting in the middle of the circle, and I was transported to this amethyst pyramid in the woods. And this luminescent green light, because it was like the light was going through and being converted to green healing energy. And when I opened my eyes, I thought, well, I got to find out more about these, and I got to find out more about sound.
No way.
And from there, I basically ultimately started studying with as many people as I could about how to use sound for healing, which at the time was really, really small. But I found the Sound Healers Association. I had all these different people from throughout the planet coming to share their knowledge with myself and this small group of people. It was in the Boston, Massachusetts area, and we would get people from Germany and England and all over the U.S., and they'd be scientists, physicians, medicine people, and et cetera. And it was an incredible education. And because of that, I thought, well, this is so important. I need to get some sort of validation for this. So I work with Lesley University, creating a program researching the uses of sound and music for healing. From there, I was able to practically take my master's thesis, which is called Awakening the Lost Chord, and turn it into a book which was published by, at the time, Element Books of England, called Healing Sounds. Now, this is the 30th anniversary issue, so the book has been around for a while. But from there, it just went. I've written about a half a dozen different books, more probably, have about 30 award-winning recordings, including chakra chants, holy harmony, frequency, sounds of healing, going on. And it's been a whirlwind ride, particularly seeing sound absolutely blossom in the last 10 or so years, so that
For
everybody's got
sure.
their bowl or tuning fork or bell or whatnot. And it's like, wow, very cool.
Yeah. But it also feels like even in the last couple of years since I've been interested in sound, there's so many studies that are coming out. Like even in the last 2 years that are kind of bringing this ancient knowledge sort of full circle and backing it up, which is really great to see.
I have a new book coming out in August called Ascension Harmonics, that in the end has got some pretty interesting, not released scientific work done by my friend
Wow.
Dr. Glenn Ryan, who's one of the, having to do with the sounds of the divine name and water and DNA. So, but the thing is, we could get into a discussion of why is it so necessary for us to see the science? Because from my perspective, if you can feel and experience the sound, why do we need such validation that it's real?
Yeah.
Because when you get into a quantum level of consciousness, which a lot of us are evolving to, we realize that it's our interface with whatever's happening that creates the reality that we manifest. So, oftentimes with science, people prove what they want to prove. And, therefore, there is, if you like, I honor it and I love it. And it's like, wow, this is real. But was it not real before it got proven? All right. We were talking a moment before we went on that I wanted to share the 4 pillars of sound healing with
Yes.
you and with your audience, because I think it's so very, very important. My wife Andy and I, you mentioned our sound satsangs, and she is the co-creator of that. She's a co-creator of the fabulous, here I'll find it somewhere, the fabulous Humming Effect book, which is just wonderful. We'll be talking about that in a moment. But the 4 pillars of sound healing, which are the first of the first 4 secrets of the 7 secrets of sound healing. Yeah. I just want people to know, because I'm going to be going over them just a little bit so people know them. And if they want to dive deeper, and I suggest that people dive deeper, because a little bit of knowledge is oftentimes not the best thing. We really need to basically get a
Yeah.
little bit more. I try to empower people, and at the same time, I try to empower people to go to dive indeed deeper into the different realms.
I totally agree. And the 7 Secrets of Sound Healing was actually one of the first books about sound healing I picked up. And I have to say, like, a lot of the things that I learned in there, I use very regularly when I'm practicing. So it's a fantastic book. And I'll make sure I'll link to the Humming Effect as well in
Well,
the notes.
Lauren, you must be an amazing sound healer if you read this book.
Well, that book is actually why I'm on this call with you, Jonathan, because
Yeah.
I read how you did the workshops to learn, and I was like, that would be an amazing way to learn and to be able to give back.
In October, I went into the recording studio and I actually did the audio book of the 7 Secrets of Sound Healing. But the reality was, as I was reading this book, I thought, by gosh, this is such a wonderful education for people. It's like sort of a mini sound healing course. So check out my reading, The 7 Secrets of Sound Healing. It's pretty good. I liked it. So
Love
anyway.
that. Yeah, I don't know why people don't read their own books. I personally love it when people read them themselves. It just adds a little bit of magic in there.
Yeah. So here's a secret. Back when I was probably around your age, yikes. I'm not even going to ask how old you are, but I was probably about 25 or so, 26. I ended up being the most popular disc jockey in Central Florida. I was great at mixing and segueing stuff and all this other musical things, but I was not a good reader. Somebody would hand me the news and I'd go, Elvis Presley died today. It was like so they actually brought in a newsman to read for me. So it was always my kryptonite. So I said, okay, I'm going to do this. And reading the book, of course. And that was many years ago, folks. That was probably close to 50 years ago or more. So I did learn how to read since then. Everything leads to everything else. Okay. First of the four pillars, and we teach four of them for the foundational practices of sound healing, is that everything is vibration. I'm going to go through this quickly just because it's there in the book, and I know that you, having read it, can instruct your people with this one. Look, everything, our ancient mystic masters and our modern quantum physicists tell us the same thing. Everything is in a state of vibration. The universe is a symphony. As we know, sound travels as a wave. This wave is measured in cycles per second. We hear from around 16 of these cycles a second to around 1,000. That's the highest level of our hearing for the most part. But our friends in the ocean, dolphins, can hear upwards of 180,000 cycles a second. So just because we can't hear a sound doesn't mean that there isn't music being created. From the electrons moving around the nucleus of an atom to planets and distant galaxies moving around their sun, they're all creating motion which can be perceived as being a sound. Every organ, every bone, every tissue, every part of our body is in a state of vibration. And when we are in a state of health, we say we're in sound health. And we are like this overall orchestra that's playing the symphony of the self. But what happens if the second violin player loses their sheet music? They begin to play out of tune, out of harmony. Pretty soon their playing really sounds very, very funky. I don't know if you've ever heard an orchestra with one string player that's playing out. It really sounds very, very off. We are like this wonderful orchestra with perhaps a string player playing off. The entire orchestra begins to sound funky. This is akin to a part of our body losing its normal resonant frequency, its normal, healthy, harmonic frequency. We say it's vibrating out of ease, out of harmony. It is diseased. And the basic idea of using sound for healing is simply to restore the string player's sheet music back so they're playing in tune, playing in harmony. Now, this is the basic principle of using sound for healing. It's also the basic principle of practically every holistic traditional medicine, from homeopathy, chiropractic, acupuncture, acupressure. All these different things are simply trying to put the organ or the physical, emotional, or mental, spiritual body back into balance. There are two basic ways that sound affects us, and this is, everybody pay attention because this is very cool. The first is called psychoacoustics. That's where the sound goes into our ear, into our brain, it affects our nervous system, our heart rate, our respiration. Here is an example of psychoacoustics. Now you can't hear this, but it sounds very lovely. And this example is psychoacoustics. And a lot of times people perceive a sound only as a phenomena that engages our sense of hearing. But there's a whole lot more. Sound going into the body. It's called vibroacoustics. This is where sound goes in and affects us on a molecular level, going down to the DNA. Here's an example using a tuning fork, but a different method. Strike the tuning fork, put the stem on my body, it goes into the physical body. This is vibroacoustics. And this is one of the key ways that sound can also affect us. So think about it. Now, they're not separate because, for example, whether you're working with a bowl or a bell, you'll hear it, but you'll also feel it. But I like people to become aware of where are you feeling it? What is it doing it? Because really, this is on a level. Here's a quote from the New York Times, a long time ago. Does it make it real? Well, it's nice. Sound shaped into a dazzling tool can make, break, or rearrange molecular structure. So if you can rearrange molecular structure, what can't you do? Okay, and I just want to suggest that the best, most healing instrument is the voice. More on this in a moment. The first, okay, so let me jump to the second pillar. The first one, everything is vibration. The second one is that intent is powerful. Without going into a long discourse, when I was at Lesley University collecting all this material on how sound could be used for healing, I had literally a pile of papers about yohai and they were all different systems of using sound for healing that I was going to correlate and have Goldman's Encyclopedia of Sound Healing. You want to heal X, Y, or Z? Turn to this page and I'll give you the frequency. But I began to put it all together, and nobody was necessarily working with the same frequencies. They were all very different. You'd have Dr. X using one particular set of frequencies for an organ, Dr. Y using a completely different set of frequencies for the same organ. Spiritual Master A using a mantra for a particular chakra, Spiritual Master B using a different mantra for that chakra, or the same mantra for a different chakra. Yikes! How can this be? I'm sitting there in a state of intellectual angst, rocking back and forth, and this inner voice says, it is not only the frequency of the sound that creates the effect, but also the intention of the person making and receiving the sound. And I wrote down the formula: frequency plus intent equals healing. At the time, I would be talking to these doctors and scientists saying, have you ever thought about the importance of frequency intentionality? Because they were all frequency, yeah. And they thought I was a man from another planet, which I might be. They weren't supposed to know that. But thank goodness, because of the work of people like Dr. Bruce Lipton and Joe Dispenza or Lynn McTaggart or Masaru Emoto's water molecule pictures, stuff like that. You know, that was some years later, so it took quite a while. So now, we can talk about intention. And you go, oh, yes, indeed. My friend Lynn McTaggart has done her intention experiments and all that stuff. But at the time, I'd be talking to these doctors. They just thought, this guy does not know what he's talking about. Now we're finding that indeed, if you like, the intention is at least as powerful. You can take two sounds with very different intentionalities and have two very different outcomes.
Yeah. And in terms of I know you mentioned you were talking to people within medicine about this. Has there been a shift within the medical profession?
Well, it depends. If people get into the quantum realms of consciousness and understanding or whatnot, then they get very, very much into the idea that the intention or consciousness is part of the whole process. And with regard to intent is powerful, I would say that the most powerful and important intention you can focus on a sound is that of compassion, kindness, and love, because that can have such incredible healing abilities. The woman who first initiated me in sound, gave me that crystal, her name was Sarah Benson. She said to me when I founded the Sound Healers Association, I was looking for a motto, and she said something to me, and I said, oh, that's too corny. And now I teach it all the time because it's so important. And it's the true sound of healing is love. Okay. And love is, if you like, a consciousness. And here is where we can get back into why is the voice most healing? Because it's the easiest, purest way of encoding intention onto a sound. With this tuning fork, I have to first think, then I go boom, and I make the sound, then I'm focusing my consciousness on it. But when I'm speaking, it's just happening naturally. And just for everybody who's listening, you can use the conversational voice as a healing instrument simply by applying kindness and compassion to your words. It's so easy in this divided world right now to point at the other person and go, you're wrong, you don't know what you're talking about. And we become divided. And I got to tell you, Lauren, if we can begin to work together, we have a phenomena of 1 + 1 = 3. We can create much greater than just the sum of the parts. But if we basically make the other person wrong, you get 1 - 1 = less than 0. You get nothing done. So we really need to listen to each other. And as we listen to each other, let the other person speak and then go, okay, I hear what you're saying. And I may not agree with you, but you have the right to say it as opposed to you're wrong. Does that make sense? Okay. So intent is powerful. Now the next one, third one, we are all unique vibratory beings. And this I always ask as a metaphor, how many of you in a workshop are allergic to penicillin? Usually somewhere around 10 to 20% of an audience will raise their hand. And I say, great. So if everything in the universe is vibration, okay, then penicillin is a vibration or a series of frequencies, however you want to look at it. And for 80% of you, it's going to be a healing vibration. But for 20%, it's going to be toxic. And this is such an extraordinary, if you like, metaphor for everything, whether it's pharmaceuticals, whether it's frequencies, whether it's food, you name it. And you're going to get about 80% of an audience or a population that's going to like something and it's going to resonate with, but for
Hmm.
20% it isn't. Now, this is so important because there is no magic frequency.
Yeah. And I think
What
as well,
res-
when people are giving a sound bath, for example, it can feel quite, if someone gets up and leaves, even if it's just one person in a room of 30, it can totally, should I change what I'm doing? Should I try something else? But as you said, you just have to kind of accept if the intention is there with your playing, you're not going to be for everybody, and that's okay.
And that brings me into the fact that if it works for us, we must honor it. If it doesn't, we must honor it too. That's why I love when people get up and leave sound baths because they know themselves. Because more and more, everybody is giving sound baths, and there are more and more people having adverse reaction to the
Yeah.
sound baths because it does not work for them.
Mm,
Beautiful. If they feel bad because they had an adverse reaction to it and that they didn't go along, well, that doesn't help anybody either. So it's really just honoring that if this works for you, wonderful. If it doesn't, that's okay. I
yeah.
recently did an event and that somebody was doing a sound bath and there was a gong player who I really liked and he was playing a gong and it got too overpowering and I had to
Yeah.
leave. And I spoke to a couple of other people. I said, "How are you doing?" They said, "Well, the gong was a little bit overpowering." And that's all good. Other people went, "That
Mm,
gong was the most incredible thing I ever heard." That's great too.
yeah.
So once again, just sound is visceral. When it resonates and we feel it, that's great. And if it resonates and we don't feel it properly, honor that. Okay, that's the third one. We are all unique vibratory beings. There's no magic frequency. Last one, and my wife Andy, it's her favorite. And I think as I'm going on, it maybe become, as we are now getting into the world of frequencyism and sound, it's becoming one of my favorites too. And this is silence is golden. From my perspective, silence is the yin to the yang of sound. It is the place where truly if you like, it allows the body can assimilate the different frequencies that are there. If you're going from one frequency to another, it doesn't give the body the time to create the shifts and changes necessary. Without going into much in depth, first of all, there is a deep spiritual tradition of sound that has to do with inner listening. This is a total subject unto itself, but everybody there, if you are working with sound, and if you're working with sound for 20 minutes, I always like to say, give the person 20 minutes of silence, really,
Wow.
in order for the sound to assimilate, in order for them to go. I've led lots of really deep, for example, chanting workshops where we'll do a mantra for an hour. And it's great. The mantra, however, grounds you when you stop chanting, all of a sudden, that's when you
Mm,
can travel onto the sound to higher planes of consciousness and really converse with divine entities. We have almost lost the ability of understanding and experiencing silence in this day and age. We are so distracted
yeah.
by the internet, by social media, by X, Y, or Z, and we don't even know how to deal with silence. And yet,
Hmm.
the deepest yogis, spiritual holy men will tell you that it is silence that is, if you like, the place to be. So I wanted to suggest those four things. Everything is vibration, intent is powerful, we are all unique vibratory beings, and silence is golden. Just to 4 hours in about 20 minutes. I have to take a breath.
Amazing. I wanted to ask you one question related to what makes a great sound therapist, especially when it comes to reading the room. And I know we've spoken about leaving space for silence, having the intention there. Are there any other tips that you can think about when it comes to trying to sort of hold the space for a large room of people?
Experience is the first word that came out because the more you work, the more experience with sound, the more experience you will have doing it. And all of a sudden, the more learning you will have. I could say, well, yes, you have to, check out the biorhythms, the biofields of person or X, Y, or Z. And I can tell you
Mm.
what works for me. And I've been doing this for close to 50 years. My signs or whatnot, but yes, reading a room. Now I have
Mm.
some students who are very well-known DJs and all that stuff. And in fact, I didn't even know when I was a disc jockey or when I was doing this and that about reading the room, but you can obviously sense the field of who is there and what is there. Mostly, what is your intention, first of all? And also, here's one that, of course, is really a lot of people don't think about this. There's a relationship between, we're talking about psychoacoustics, but between nervous system and the sounds we do. So it's like,
Yeah.
okay, and as an example, loud sounds are for the most part going to create the fight or flight response with people. And for the most part, I think does not really matter if it's a gong, a jet plane, or whatnot. If you get over 70, 80, 100 decibels, it's going to cause your nervous system to go like that, which is probably why a lot of people may get up in a sound bath and feel uncomfortable because it's too loud. Louder is not better. More is not better. We live in this society where we think that more is better. But really, if you deal with things on a holistic homeopathic level, sometimes the least amount of things have the deepest, most profound
Mm.
effect. And also, I have to say that because we're all unique vibratory beings, what works as a therapist for one person may not work for a therapist for another. Do you know of the term the ISO principle?
No, I've never heard of that.
It's a term from psychology, but it applies equally well to sound. The ISO principle simply means meeting the other person where they're at. And I think this is, at least for me, one of the great keys, at least with one on one healing with somebody. With a large room, it's different. But if you're doing one on
Mm.
one healing, if the other person is like this and you start singing, you might need to go like this and then slowly bring them down and down and down. It's actually a phenomena of entrainment. Entrainment is basically the idea of one vibrating object and another vibrating object. The most powerful vibrating object will cause the less powerful vibrating object to meet it there. But then where are you
Mm.
going to go with it? What is the purpose? So, with the ISO principle, you want to try to meet the person where they're at and then slowly shift and change because if you're like, oh, yes, just, take a breath and do that, maybe first you need them, okay, what's going on with you? Meet them there. Talk a little rapidly as opposed to talking slow
Yeah.
because if they're like this and you're talking like this, they may go, get out of here. But if you meet them where they are, they're probably gonna and then shift them, change them. You sort of hook them in and you slowly go, okay, now you really like that, but hey, what if we began to do it like, does that make sense?
Yeah. So you kind of like mirror the energy of the client and then slowly kind of handhold them lower, lower, lower. I really
Exactly.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know earlier we spoke about having the voice. You said one of your favorite modalities now is the voice. And
Oh, yes.
recently I had my first experience of a sound bath with somebody singing.
Mm,
And for me, I didn't know what to expect. I don't know if I'm going to be into it, but I have to say it was kind of like this lullaby feeling that just dropped me in like nothing else.
right. And I'm going to say that I love the power of the voice. As you may or may not know, I've been doing different types of vocal stuff for a really long time, not necessarily as a entertainment phenomena. I did that for a while when I was playing music, but as an entrainment phenomena, meaning trying to shift and change their voice, their frequency level. And I've worked with mantras, overtone chanting, X, Y, or Z. And this is all great, but I'm going to suggest to you now, as we're here, I'm going to lead into the concept of humming, Lauren, simply because there's a phenomena where you sit there and you're in a sound bath and you lead and you experience the sound takes you over and just you go with it. But there's also another experience of co-creating with the sound. And in order to co-create with the sound, you have to be active. And on a level, the easiest way of being active is using your voice. Most people are so darn judgmental about their voice that they're not going to sing. They're just
Yeah.
not. I mean, if they want to dedicate days, weeks, months, or years to having a great voice that's beautiful, but I want to hook in everybody to the power of sound. I want to hook in everybody to the power of sound to heal and transform. If somebody's freaked out about their voice, it's not going to happen. There's nobody freaked out about humming.
Yeah, it's
And
so
that's how
true.
come my wife Andy and I wrote The Humming Effect. I was over teaching at a very, very famous place over in England. The first workshop that I did there, probably about 500 people, and I took them through deep chakra resonance, deep harmonic resonance, X, Y, and Z. Came back a year later to do next level. And I said, well, how many of you are working with this on a daily basis? And about two people raised their hand. And later on, I said to Andy, I said, hey, we've got to find a sound that everybody works with on a daily basis.
Mm.
And, we looked at each other and went, because the hum, babies hum, the elderly hum. We hum when we're happy. There are all sorts of physio, and so we wrote this book. I'll hold it up again because everybody, it's a must-have. I got to tell you, because and what I love about this is that people are now picking up. A lot of people are picking up on humming, and I love it because when the book first came out, there was nothing. This is the first book that was professionally published on the subject of
Mm.
humming, and it's really taken off. I love it. But as we began to dive deeper into the concept of humming, it became truly, truly profound. Here, I'll just share with you some benefits of humming. Increased oxygen in your cells, increased lymphatic circulation, increased levels of melatonin, reduced levels of stress-related hormones like cortisol, release of endorphins, those wonderful self-created opiates that work as natural pain relievers. Here's a big one, drum roll on this. You get lowered blood pressure and heart rate. Now, this is huge. This is
Mm.
huge. We live in such a stressed out place right now. Everybody's so stressed out. That's why sound baths are so great. They go there and they go, I can now just chill out.
Yeah, my 1 hour of relaxation in the day.
Right. Suppose I were to tell you you could get an, e-
Mm.
an equal, if not more powerful amount by probably 1 minute of humming. If you hum for 1 minute, it'll drop your heart rate and blood pressure down pharmaceutical levels, 10, 20 points. That's outrageous. You could take a whole
Amazing.
lot of chemicals so you could hum and have
And
this
how were you
reaction.
guys getting the data for this?
I don't remember the name of the paper, but it was a place called the Karolinska Institute
Yep.
in Scandinavia. And it was a very large paper that basically dealt with all these physiological phenomena. Also, I
Mm.
then, as I began to do a deep dive back on the internet, I searched for other things that were happening, and I began to put them all together.
Mm.
But the paper in the Karolinska Institute, actually, one of the most important things was that they dealt with the fact that you get increased levels of nitric oxide. And
Mhm.
nitric oxide is huge in terms of being, first of all, a vasodilator, which is a molecule that relaxes and widens the blood pressure. It's also an antibacterial, antiviral agent. So if you hum, you can basically you get 15 times the amount of nitric oxide that is normally released, and that's actually pharmacological pharmaceutical levels of nitric oxide to kill the bacteria. And a lot of the critters that lodge in the rest of the body first get into the nose.
Mm.
You can
So interesting.
do that, which is so very, very cool. And a couple of other things, you get the release of oxytocin, which is a trust hormone. You get increased heart rate variability, and you get increased vagal toning. These are all things having to do with deep relaxation. So,
Yeah.
and there's been more and more research going on about this, which I love. But the paper from the Karolinska Institute was that's a place that does a lot of Nobel Prize winning stuff. And
Mm.
I read it and I realized that it was, I dissected this paper, and I'm not that much of a scientist, but I looked and said, oh, this is so cool. Oh, they didn't understand this. They didn't understand that, because a lot of the scientists don't necessarily understand sound and vibration, but
Yeah.
what they were coming up with. I said, so more on this later. Conscious humming, something everybody can do. And I'm just going to suggest to you that there's just a few things you want to do. Number one, you want to keep your lips closed. Why?
Hmm.
Because hey, I've had people go, "Oh, I can hum with my mouth open." Huh? No, it's not a hum. You got to be going. As soon as I open my mouth, the sound begins to go out, and you lose some of the vibroacoustic resonance, which is why the hum is the most powerful vibroacoustic sound that you can make. Okay, because it's all self-contained. You also want to hum on one note. You don't want to go because then the frequencies are jumping all over the place. You want to hit one note and let it
Yeah.
create deep resonance. You want to hum on a comfortable pitch. It's very close to the conversational voice, actually.
Mm.
And finally, first time you do it, probably you want to do it 4 or 5 times, and then you want to be in a state of silence for an equal amount of time. And when you do that, you will really find yourself buzzed out. Now, I'm going to suggest that, of course, is all accompanied with deep and relaxed breathing. So, in other words, breathing in, breathing in. Hey, let's do it for a couple times with me, okay? Would you
Hmm.
like to do this?
Sure.
All right.
I did some just before we started, but I am ready to go.
Okay, so the first thing is you want to check yourself out and see where you're at, because you can't know where you are till you know where you've been, if that makes any sense. So checking yourself out, nice, you're going there already. A couple of nice deep breaths, and then we'll just hum 3 times, because you have done this, and this is just a demonstration. And once you've done this, hum for 5 minutes, hum for 15 minutes, but allow yourself then to be in an equal space of silence. So, Lauren, let's take our first nice deep breath and release it with a sigh. Another nice deep breath. Nice deep breath feels so good, and just sighing. And on the next one, we'll just do the first 3 hums. Are you ready? Taking a nice deep breath and taking another nice deep breath. And just one more. And just being in a state of silence for a moment, checking yourself out, feel any different. And I know that I feel pretty buzzed from just having done that 3 times. Lauren, how are you doing? Come on back.
I know it's miles away. Yes, I do really enjoy that. And I especially enjoy leaving my teeth just touching.
And that's wonderful. I am not a teeth hummer, although a fellow by the name of Dr. Alfred Tomatis, who wrote The
Yeah.
Conscious Ear, he was into humming, and he had people do the skull hum, and he would have them do that. I vary. I have a little space between my teeth and I nasalize it and like to put it into my pineal or pineal area. And it
Mm,
really buzzes me out. And of course, the next thing you can do with the hum is begin to fluctuate a little bit with either tone or with intentionality and project
yeah.
it to different parts of your body. And that is just really great. So that's again an example of frequency plus
Mm.
intent equals healing.
I also love the idea of bringing this into like one-to-ones and group sessions as well. It's like, as you said, it's something anyone can do. And I did a yoga retreat a while ago, and they did the you talk
Brahmari
about it in the book.
pranayama.
Yes, and it's the person leading did 7 breaths, like seven of the, and I thought, yeah, that's a really nice way to kind of maybe start something, whether it's sound healing, a workshop, or something.
Did they leave enough space for being in silence?
That is a big difference, I think, and that's something I'm really taking away as a refresh from this conversation, is having that equal parts silence afterwards. Even myself, when I do the humming, I realize that that's the gap for me. I don't sit in silence afterwards.
Right. And I'm going to suggest that if you do this humming for 5 minutes, that you leave yourself at least 3 or 4 minutes of silence. And that's also the place, boy, you're in silence. The beings speak to
Mm,
you. In Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, the very first sort of yoga book that was ever written thousands of years ago. And this is Goldman's sound bite of it. And it basically is Sutra 1.27. The original sound of creation was the humming of pranava or
mm,
pranava. They had to give it a name, so they called it Om. So that if you like, the Om came from the hum. How cool is that?
mm.
So it's a
It's
very,
crazy.
very sacred sound.
Yeah. And very, very ancient knowledge that just kind of coming back around again,
Yeah.
being rediscovered.
And I have just, for myself, I've come back to the hum as being the be all and end all of, I can do almost everything that I can do with any of the other overtones, undertones, side tones, or whatnot, working with a little bit of intentionality and a slight fluctuation of the pitch. It does amazing things, at least for me. Now, if I'm in a large group, I'm going to but that's a large group and I'm trying to project the
Wow.
field. When I'm working with myself, the hum is just fine.
And just on that, are you still doing one-to-ones? What does your sound healing practice look like at the moment?
Mostly I talk to people like yourself and I
Yep.
do it. I actually have never done much one-to-one except on friends.
Really
No, I basically
interesting.
decided if I was going to be doing one-to-one, then it wouldn't allow me to do teaching. And I'm not
Yeah.
teaching near what I used to do. But for about
Mm,
20 years, I was teaching practically every weekend to hundreds, thousands of people. And I
mm,
taught. So a lot of people, whether they know it or not, a lot of the practices that they're doing oftentimes stem from a lot of things that
mm,
I taught or that have been taught by some of the wonderful teachers that I work with, whether they're Tibet monks, yogic
mm.
masters, or just plain simple shamanic people.
Amazing. That actually leads into one of my final questions for you, which is I wondered if you wanted to share a particular memory of learning from one of these masters. Like, was it a Tibetan monk? Is there something that really stands out to you as super memorable?
Sound is such an incredible. I could sit here and do stories upon stories upon stories with you. There's almost none. I mean, I've had so many mystical experiences that defy imagination, that defy belief in terms of things that have happened. To be able to see people shift and change, I can't say this is the best, this is whatnot. I mean, a story I often tell is back 35, 40 years ago. I created a recording called Dolphin Dreams. That was the first recording that ever had the sounds of dolphins on it. It was created for the birth of my son Joshua. And I was in my office at the time. The phone rings. And I said, I'd like to speak to Mr. Goldman. I said, yeah. I said, this is so and so. I said, hello, how are you doing? She said, well, I have not slept properly in 10 years. My doctor recommended that I listen to Dolphin Dreams, and I listened to it last night. It had an auto reverse on a cassette player, and then all of a sudden she broke into tears. And she goes, and I slept well for the first time last night, and I just thought, wow, my
Wow.
heart just broke open. I went, wow, it's so beautiful. And that was one of the first, they continue with so
Mm,
many people writing about how sound has shifted and changed them. And I could tell you stories about chronic situations that have
yeah.
disappeared immediately using sound, and that was brilliant. I can tell you about whatever. And one of my latest things, of course, and latest the last 25 years, is trying to see if we can shift and change the planetary consciousness with our own sound. There isn't anything that sound can't potentially do. Frequency plus intent equals healing. It was true back
Yeah.
then. It is true now.
Would you like to share the Global Consciousness
Sure, sure.
project? Just the final touch on that one, because it's really mind blowing.
Right. So once a year, we do an event called World Sound Healing Day that is on February 14th, Valentine's Day here in the United States. And we make a sound, an ah sound, which is oftentimes considered the heart chakra sound, the ah sound, encoded with the energy of love consciousness. We do what is called heart brain coherence, thanks to the courtesy of it's a very simple technique that allows people to put themselves in a state of coherence, state of love, state of compassion. And then we encode that energy onto the sound, project it to the planet. There's something called the Global Consciousness Project that's been around for a long time from Princeton University that
Mm.
found that when events of a high compassion occur, they're measurable by a particular computer program. I just gave you an hour-long lecture in 1 minute. I don't know if that even made any sense, but we do it once a year and it makes a difference. I like to say with our
Yeah.
light, our love, and our sound, we can make a difference. We heal the planet, we heal ourselves. We have a choice.
Wonderful. What a perfect note to end on. I'll make sure I include everything in the links, Jonathan. But I would love for you to let us know, how can people find you if they listen to this conversation, they're interested in your work, where do they go?
HealingSounds.com. It's a wonderful portal into another realm of pretty objective sound healing. I like to believe that the world of sound is such an incredible spectrum of possibilities that if we limit ourselves to one particular frequency doing X, Y, or Z, we are oftentimes not encompassing and embracing the power of sound to truly heal and transform. It's okay. It's like wearing uh, or riding a bicycle with little training wheels, so to speak. But once you begin to understand sound, you can take almost any sound, project the correct intention on it, and create miracles.
Thanks again, Jonathan. I've had such a great time, and it really is an honor to talk to you, and all the best with everything that's coming up.
Nice. And once again, the hum is a wonderful tool. And you can also, once you get it and experience it, you can turn other people onto it. Children love it, infants love it, humans love it. As you were saying, humming together in a group, how cool is that, Lauren? So just want to remind people that there's so many different things. You don't necessarily have to have a crystal bowl or even tuning forks. You can work with your own hum, listen
Oh.
within, and experience great things.